Good evening and welcome to the Weekender, one and all, your weekly drop-in shop for gaming tabletop news from across the industry. This week, Ben, Free and myself are joined by a wandering Justin. Hello, wandering Justin.
Hello, I've wandered in.
How's life?
Wimbledon way?
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Occasionally we let him out to do things. Most of the time he's just running the sweatshop of 3D printers.
It's once in a while I'll slip the leash, just go out, get a little bite of food, and then, they'll send the dog catcher after me.
Yeah, it's the way to go. Often you'll see Shay running through the streets of Coleraine with one of those massive butterfly nets chasing after Justin. There's an image.
All going a bit Benny Hill.
Anyway, before we dive into this week's show, quick update. Missed Rorke's Drift. Somebody got COVID. Wasn't me. Somebody is still suffering from COVID, hence the wandering Justin.
Yeah.
However, I've managed to wrangle one of our community members.
Is that a ringer?
So Justin will be
Not
setting...
me.
No, Justin will be setting it all up and running because, as we know, I am the tech guy. And then I'll be bringing in Lord Sains from the website,
Nice.
St. Paul, as my Warren Light. I just get him to stand closer to the camera. They'll fill about the same volume. Yeah, a Wish version of Warren. Oh, that's
I was going for the other way and putting plus on the end of it with premium, but
I'm sure everyone and their mum's doing a plus version. Even Paramount is now doing Paramount Plus.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they've got to bring the money in somehow, haven't they?
Yeah.
And they've got to drag Lloyd into another streaming service with the lure of Halo. So
yes, of course.
It's one way of doing it. If you watch Halo, you just go back and watch the Book of Boba Fett last week.
That's true. Yeah.
There was a Halo in that.
Started it. I still started it.
Yeah,
we'll say nothing. We won't run it for you. However, if you do fancy joining in on Saturday, we'll be kicking off at 1-ish. GMT.
Ish.
We're Irish. It will not be bang on 1. It will be ish. There will probably be chat that I may or may not be able to monitor.
Yeah.
Which means lots of glasses on, glasses off, and then sneering. But otherwise, you'll be able to see what my ridiculous Rorke's Drift game looks like when set up.
Yeah.
It is a really fun game.
I enjoy it. I don't care about anybody else. This is often the way with games I run. As long as I'm enjoying myself, I don't mind if my players are miserable.
Yeah.
I mean, the last time you did run it down here, Jerry, you were kind of herding cats because people would wander off to talk for a little bit when it wasn't their turn because we had 10 people playing?
Yeah, something like that.
So
even though they don't know when their turn is coming because it's random.
Yeah.
All of your Zulus are ready now. They're not injured anymore, no.
No, everybody was glued back together for last week.
Oh.
So there was no... Well, they've recovered from the Zulu massacre.
Yes.
I don't know if they've recovered from that. That was fairly brutal. I don't think anybody can. They just threw them living or dead into a mass pit and then set fire to them. The Zulu massacre was quite brutal. But the ones I fell on, they're all fine. Yeah. We're all fine here.
They're all reattached at the ankles then, yeah.
And everything's laminated. It's all nicely laminated. So
I can't, do you know what? I can't actually wait to see this laminated piece of information that you keep going on about. The fact
laminated
that
Book of Dreams.
The fact that you brought a laminator for the, I'm really excited to see this. I am.
It's just because I like to have everything from my Rorke's Drift game kept in perpetuity.
Yes.
And if I took it round to various conventions or places to play it, if I've just got little pages that I've printed out, then eventually somebody will rip them or drill on them or set a beer down on top of them. So it's
or a toddler will start gnawing on it.
Oh no, I generally try and stay away from anywhere that has toddlers. That I'm not allowed within 100 feet.
Okay, moving on.
So, that aside, that's what I'll be doing tomorrow. Don't care what the rest of you are up to this weekend. If you're not there and not in the chat, then you've missed out terribly. It probably will go up on YouTube afterwards for people who can't join in.
It'll all be saved in posterity, so it's all good.
Saved in the posterior. Right. We're going to dive into the show proper and take a look at the indie of the week. And this week, it's so indie, it doesn't really exist yet.
Exactly.
Kind of.
Yeah.
How indie is that?
This is like a
indie?
a preview indie, a proto indie, a proto indie of the week. So this comes from Daniel Mercy, who a lot of people will know has done rule sets across all manner of different time periods. I know him particularly from Battle Ravens, because that's the game that I saw and played and very much enjoyed. But he has managed to set up sort of like a one-man operation in many regards, with some help from outside as well, called Wiglaf Miniatures. So Wiglaf Miniatures is his new sort of baby that is making 18 millimeter, but also 1/100th scale miniatures, but also 15 mil, but also just tiny travel size 28 mil. These are all things that he has said. I'm not making this up. Basically kind of like I made some miniatures, doesn't really matter what scale they are, for use in playing out historical war games. And the focus at the moment, there you can see it exactly there. Big 15s. I like that. I think big 15s is a cool way of putting this.
Sounds like a kid show.
Yeah. But the first range of miniatures is actually being produced alongside Mark Copplestone of Copplestone Castings, who a lot of people will know. I actually painted up some of his Lord of the Rings-ish stuff. It was very cool. And he is very well known for things like his Barbarian range and everything like that. Does lots of things in very different scales, but awesome miniatures. That talent has been translated over into creating these really awesome 18 mil metal miniatures for use in sort of creating an army of Saxons, effectively, for use during the Age of Pender, which we'll come to in a little bit. Currently, as Jerry was alluding to there, the range isn't actually fully available yet. This is all going to be coming out through North Star. So, as you know, North Star will tend to sell a lot of stuff from a whole bunch of different creators, Copplestone being one of them. And so, obviously, it makes sense that this would translate over into their web store at the I think it's later this month. I think.
Yeah.
The collection at the moment contains this sort of warlord that you see there at the back with his sort of banner bearer and companion. You then have a set of unarmored warriors, just seeing there, which are looking very cool. Oh, they're so awesome! I love the cloaks and everything. It's very nice.
They look stunning.
There's also a set of armored warriors, which you can see a little bit of the back there with their big helmets on. All of them obviously armed with spears, as you would imagine. It's the easiest weapon to make for the populace.
Uses the least amount of metal and keeps the fighting very far away.
And then you've also got a set of light skirmishers armed with bows and or javelins, however you want to approach it. But this then forms the basis of the Age of Pender range and game that we'll go into in a second. So, all these 18 mil metal miniatures are going to be available very soon. There's a really fun little sort of section of like his blog and stuff where he's talked a little bit more about these, where he goes into like why he decided to do them in the way that he did, why he chose set arms and armor, why he's gone for like this arrangement of different troops and that kind of thing. So it's all very well researched, as you would have imagined with Mercy diving into this.
Yeah.
But,
I believe there are 2 warlord models as well. So this one is for Penda, and there's some discussion about whether or not that helmet's correct, has been reconstructed correctly. But the other one is based on Sutton Hoo, so Rivalda. So even though it is just a sort of Dark Agey Saxon style of force, there's a couple of different warlords, so you could have a warlord off, or throw them up against some Picts or Irish if you want. But these were a set of preview miniatures that went out to Mogsy. So he's done quite a nice review on his blog about how he's put them together. And they also match up very well with the Forged in Battle 18s because he's using those for his Welsh. But you can see there the level of detail on the sculpts is
really nice,
good.
Very much so.
I see what he means about them being sort of like travel 28 mil because you're not dropping detail in the sculpts just because you're dropping scale. So it's quite nice. And here we see
that's a really cool idea. I like that.
That is nice.
He's done a few of these bases, which we'll get onto in a moment when we talk about the actual gameplay for Penda, because it is figure, scale, and basing agnostic in every way, shape, and form. So if you've got minis, they will work for this. It's easier to do something clever. I mean, the fact is Warlord sits in behind that sort of little spear wall. is quite nice.
So cool.
Or can be left off altogether. You can attach your warlord to units in the game, although only one and only at the start. But it's an interesting idea behind it. I do like the fact that on his blog spot, he's got his design notes. He generally includes them in his own games anyway. So you get an idea of where he's coming from and what he's doing. And it's nice to see the sort of the idea behind it. And occasionally we'll see that in the rules themselves.
Question. So we know we can't get the minis yet. Are the rules available yet?
Yes, they are.
Yep.
So
you can get them via the medium of Wargames Vault.
Yeah, so we downloaded these to have a look at them and give them a look. They're pretty cheap as well. It's like £5-6 to get your hands on it, which is pretty awesome.
Nice.
But there's a digital version of the rules which kind of goes into detail of how to play the game. So if anyone, I mentioned Battle Ravens earlier. That kind of gives you a basis for the way that this plays out. So this doesn't play out like a typical tabletop war game in that it uses it's not sort of free movement in that regard. It uses like a gridded landscape. So you'd lay this over the top of your terrain, or you'd work it into, or this would just be a mat in of itself if you wanted to design it. You could also use like markers if you wanted to mark out the different areas of it. There's a whole bunch of different things you can do in order to get that sort of look to the battlefield. But this then allows you to play out a game which is a lot more about command and control than it is about sort of individual heroics or one unit sort of rushing out and doing like the most impressive things and that kind of thing. And as Jerry was saying, it's very much one of those things where the general is sitting back almost and kind of looking out over the battlefield and directing the flow of the battle, which I think is really nice. The other thing that kind of flows into this game as well quite nicely, and it's something that I think a lot of people really enjoy about Saga in particular, is this idea of having like a separate area of the game to play like almost like a mini game. So that's why you have this tactics board that you're seeing here. So this enables you to you effectively decide what you're going to do using this, and then that all plots out and plays out on the battlefield after you've done it, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's great.
And the interesting thing about this, unlike Saga, where you have your own battle board and you make your own plans and decisions, whoever has the initiative, you generate tactics tokens. If you lose your general because you were careless, then you lose a tactics token, which means you could be at a sort of deficit to your opponent. There are obviously limits to amount of units and that sort of thing. There is a point system, but it's all very, I don't want to say generic. It's not granular. He doesn't care if that unit has leather armor or that unit has mail or that unit has broad spears or boar spears or javelins. It's not that type of game. It's about the command and control. And if you've both got 4 tactics tokens and Ben has initiative, Ben chooses where he's going to put the first token. And he may go, sod you. I've got no shooting. You have shooting. I'm going to place one of the shooting I'm going to place one of my tactic tokens on shooting. And if you're playing something like a Pict or Welsh Army or Strathclyde Welsh, who are all about hit and run, and you've got a lot of shooting and javelins in your force, you want to have both options because you don't have enough ground troops to deal with your opponent. And if your opponent can suddenly take one of them away, yes, it means you're not going to get to move what you want to move in your own turn, but you're depriving your opponent. So you both fill this with your tactics tokens, and
as much about denial as it is about choosing what you want to do, which is really cool. Yeah,
and I really like that. Going back to the battle board. So I suppose we talk very briefly about the sort of the gameplay style. There's a points value, so unlike DBX systems where you have a set number of elements per side, you have a bit of list building in this, so you could be sitting with somewhere between sort of 6 to 15 elements in your force. You can only ever have 3 of your own units, 3 of your own elements in a single square. And then your opponent can have a max of 3, so you're never going to have more than 6 in there, and that's how the gameplay works then. So when you move, or if you shoot or you attack, whatever it happens to be from the tactics board, you pick an area. So you go this square in the middle, the units that are in there are going to move, but they can move wherever they want adjacent to. So you could split them one into each of the ones to the front and keep one back to use as a reserve to try and block off your opponent. Things like that. So it is about the grand scale of the tactics. Your warlord attaches to a unit at the start and then stays with that unit. So it makes them better. But if you lose that unit, then you lose your warlord and you lose a tactics token. And so protecting your warlord is obviously key. But at the same time, he's generally going to be with his mates, like a bunch of huskarls or elite warriors of some description. So keeping him away from the fighting is probably a bad idea as well, because you're denying yourself one of your better units. It's a really simple, elegant system.
Yeah.
Like the way that stuff's dealt in terms of damage and that thing is very simple. Sort of like hits are on 4s or whatever, saves are on 5s, and then every unit then has, as you can see there, what's called the battle rating.
Yeah. So
that indicates sort of like their health, whilst also being their quality and also their morale. So and that is what's taken down. So it's just one stat in that respect that then is removed. And once that goes down to 0, obviously the unit routes and leaves the battlefield. So it's a really fascinating one. And there are ways for things to go up and down. And obviously there's all the special abilities that you can see there as well, which are all sort of designed for Age of Pender and playing out this particular period of history. Mm-hmm. But I think what's quite nice about this is that it allows Mersey to almost take this formula, as he has done, and translate it to different periods of history and play around with it as well. So you can use the same things like the tactics board and that gridded layout, then just come up with different special abilities that would apply, specifically to Anglo-Saxons or to Vikings, and build up on that if you wanted to. Obviously, you can have things, obviously lots of interesting battles between factions of the same type fighting out in the tabletop, which is pretty cool. But you could then move that into medieval and all sorts of things later on down the line, which is cool. But yeah, so as well as them working on that kind of Anglo-Saxon period and working on those things, there's also plans to do a lot more stuff in the future as well. So they've already been talking about making miniatures for Irish, for Welsh, and Vikings of a style, which is pretty cool. So there's going to be some sort of like early Vikings in there, which would be quite nice.
I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I really like what they're doing with the Irish. They've based it off a slightly later period based off the illustrations from the Book of Kells.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But Irish hit the peak of perfection around 400. And then just stayed like that until about the 1800s. You can't improve on perfection. So it doesn't really matter that they've gone for a slightly later period, because it would still work for the early Dark Ages, Middle Ages. They work all the way through to Elizabethan, let's face it. So I'm fascinated to see what else comes along when they actually start to ramp up and get the miniatures out there, because certainly the ones they've shown off so far are excellent, and apparently they are scaled to Mark's. It's his barbarian range that I want to say it's barbaric. Yeah. Where I have some of those kicking around somewhere. I know nobody is shocked at that, but I do.
Somewhere.
So we haven't. I think I know exactly where they are. But they're mostly trolls and ogres and things. But it means then I can, potentially do some sort of Beowulf-esque Grendel type scenario for my own personal amusement. I mean, it's called Wiglaf miniatures.
Wiglaf is the second-hand man of Beowulf. So
he's the man who took over when Beowulf shuffled off this mortal coil. Spoilers.
Spoilers for the ancient.
If you ain't seen it by now, it's your own fault.
Oh, I know.
It's a hard read, especially because I didn't do anything clever like literature. But
I've got Tolkien's version, which is actually very good. So
there was actually a good version of it filmed. Gerard Butler.
The Gerard Butler one, yeah.
It's a very
Beowulf and Grendel is the name.
It is quite good.
It's not 100% as accurate as it could be, but it comes much closer than a lot of the other ones, including the Ray Winston version. Grendel. Grendel, you slay.
I deleted that from my brain. I really deleted the fact that was a thing. Wow.
This is
big gold covered Angelina Jolie.
Yeah. It was just terrible.
I remember. God, it took me a little longer to reboot it. Oh God.
Make me forget.
Anyway.
I was going to say something. That Beowulf and Grendel film, by the way, has an amazing documentary that was made at the time.
That's how I found out about it. I'd never seen the film.
The film was basically cursed. Like they swore that the gods didn't want them to make the film because things would slow down, people would get ill, all sorts of different things. That is almost worth watching as much as probably more so than the film.
That's how I found the film. I seen the documentary first. They brought because they filmed it in Iceland, and they brought a druid in to bless the production. And the day after he left, they got hit by like a volcano and the worst storms they'd ever seen ever, and it just all went downhill from there. It's just like, this is amazing.
And everyone was convinced the druid had never wanted them to do it in the first place.
Or the druid was a charlatan, and the guy went, "No, that's fake. You're all fake. It's all burns."
But they did say to them, maybe you shouldn't film a film in Iceland in the middle of the winter. But
there's that.
Yeah, but going back to Wiglaf miniatures just for a second as well. They have said that everything that's made money-wise from the side of the miniatures and the rules. So obviously you can buy the rules now and just use whatever you want to play. But all of that money is going to go directly back into creating more miniatures for this. So if you want to see more of this pop up, if you want to see the Irish and the Welsh and all the rest of the things they're working on, maybe then develop it into different periods and that kind of thing, definitely want to go out and check these out when they appear on North Star and buy the rules yourself and give it a go with what you've got lying around. Because I think it's a really fun little rule set that deserves some attention. And it's from somebody who obviously knows what they're doing when it comes to mechanics and stuff. So.
Oh God, yeah. It's an old, I think of it as an old school classic rule set. I've got things like Clash of Shields and stuff, which they're black and white. There's no fancy pictures in it. He said there might be in time if people want it, but it's a very short 30-page rule set. Yeah. People know what miniatures look like. We've all seen what miniatures look like. You can imagine what your miniatures will look like if you're trying to play this game out. But you don't need all of that fluff, upping the page count and upping the price. It's like just a mechanically clean and bare bones rule set,
which allows them to keep the page count down like that.
Yeah.
Like you can read the rules and you'll be like, oh, I know exactly what's happening. Like even if you don't want to read the full breakdown of how everything contextually works, there's like 3 or 4 pages at the back that once you read that, you'll be like, well, I know how to play. So it's very good. It's very, very well put together. So
watch out for that.
And 100% on board with that. I must reach out and see if I can talk to Dan because his work has been fantastic over the years. I own a frightening amount of it. In fact, the Zulu, my Rorke
frightening amount of everything.
Yeah, but the Rorke Strift game is actually based on one of his systems.
Oh wow!
So I
took Who Would Be Kings, is it?
It's Men Who Would Be Kings, and then I tweaked it for the defense. So, I mean, I'm on board. So you should be as well, people.
He's a Merseyite. There we go.
Well, yeah. Also, Liverpool fans, so both meanings
it's all
of Mersey
connected.
There. It's everything. This is how we all work out that we're brains in a jar, based on my love of damn Mersey and Liverpool. Right, that's enough of the Indie of the Week. We shall be right back after this swish with the news.
Coming to you from the center of Northwestern Europe. Covering board games, war games, card games, and all that you love. It's the news.
Okay then. So Ben, what's been catching your eye in the news this week?
Oh, well, the first thing that caught my eye was a branch. It went right in. The guys at Kromlech have been doing some awesome stuff this week with the release of a new terrain range that is fantastic for those diving into a little bit of fantasy gaming on the tabletop, or maybe something a little bit pulpier and horrific as well. So this is the new Dark Forest collection, which, as you can see from that sort of title they've used for it, is particularly awesomely old-hammery Warhammer, while also being maybe a bit witchery as well, perhaps. Is that a lesson? Who knows?
Silver Bayonet-esque.
Yes,
I'm fairly certain that's not a lesson.
That's not a lesson.
That does look like the silhouette of a dwarf. Yeah, this is why this is in here. You've managed to find a stealth dwarf.
That's it.
A stealth dwarf, yes. Painted in Vanta black.
Yes.
But yes, so this is a new set of HDF and resin terrain that they've been working on. The main sort of piece de resistance is that amazing windmill that we saw there, which is rickety and awesome, comes with multiple layers. It's packed full of detail. And then to sort of go alongside that, kind of building up the forest around this windmill in the middle of nowhere, we also have these things like the dark forest woods there, which are these twisted, gnarled trees. We have the haystacks, which would be great for building up sort of farmlands on the frontiers of some Eastern European town, perhaps. Sort of like the places where the hay starts to rustle and then weird animated scarecrows walk out of it and start hunting down the populace. You've also got these very sort of fairy tale-esque things like these walls here, which I think are really nice. I love that it's kind of got that the element of civilization and society there with the kind of metal sharp gates and things. Yeah. And then slowly but surely, nature is finding its way through the cracks and breaking through, which I think is really cool. And it kind of gives it a weird ancient feel to it, as if mankind tried to tame the landscape, but it's now ready to get them back. There's even a pile of skulls as well. So.
You can't keep the mushrooms out. You can't.
I tell you what, this is inspiring me to do like a homebrew, like a Vermintide 2.
You could, you could easily do that. Set out in one of the, like the farmlands that they're using a couple of the levels for that. That'd be brilliant for it. Yeah,
just
definitely.
Have it like a con game where it's like, fine, 4 people rock up and they're trying to make their way from one end of the table to the other. While
that would be amazing.
Come to try and tear them a new one.
I want you to do it, Justin. Make it happen.
Because I don't do things. I don't do things.
I love this. I love this community board. I think that's great. I just love the idea, Witcher-esque. Somebody comes out, pick up the next bounty, as it were.
Exactly.
See what's going on through the gates.
I like the fact that they leave a little hammer. So you can nail your own scrolls and things to it. That shows that that's not only a civilization, but that is an area where people know that their hammer isn't going to get nicked and used to stave somebody's head in. So this is a good village.
Yeah, there's a lot of trust in this village. Yeah.
If you're the one that rips it down off the board, the next set of adventurers won't see it.
Exactly. Very true. Yeah. I think these are really nice little things. They're lovely bits that you could put into skirmish games to give things a sort of a little bit of essence of character and narrative to things. For example, that amulet that's hanging off there in the middle.
They're not cursed.
Maybe it's definitely, the not cursed 100%. Amulet. That could be the thing that your band of adventurers goes to find in a game like Lasting Tales, and then this then leads into more sort of adventures and things that you get into.
Is that a reward for a Cyclops?
It looks like it, doesn't it?
Also, there's someone very concerned about taxation.
Tax evasion, I think it is as well.
No taxation without representation.
Exactly. Yeah.
Damn middle-class fantasy characters.
You just need to put a cup of tea on the base.
There's a really nice sort of flavor, different flavors of these. And here you can see that kind of more sort of Warhammer influence in the way that they've done the orc and stuff on there as well. So this would be great if you were looking back at doing something Warhammer Fantasy roleplay related, perhaps, if you wanted to play around with miniatures in that sense. Maybe if you just wanted to play a bit of more time, dig out the old book or something and stick these in. These could be used around the city. You could also use them outside of it as well, because they did lots of things building on from that and sort of do, about the forests and the beasts in there as well. So there's plenty of different ways to use this. Sorry, go on, Terry.
I was just going to say it's a nice range of resin, and I've worked with some of it before for the Frostgrave line, and it's robust, but also it captures an awful lot of detail on them. So I like it. I like things like this.
Yes,
because whenever you're putting a board together and you're looking for line of sight blocking terrain, people always stick down hedges, walls, occasional tree. But actually, just having an open field and 2 or 3 of these in the middle,
people can rush and hide behind you.
You can go full Band of Brothers on that one. Yeah. It's just nice. It makes it more of a lived-in world.
As you were saying as well before, I think these would be great for Silver Bayonet. I think if you took these and dropped these into that,
oh god, yeah,
they have that flavor of, the depths of rural Europe where things are not quite as it seems and folklore is more rampant than, the belief in Christianity and all that kind of thing. You could really have some fun with this and have witches and ghouls and demons and all sorts of things living in and around things like that windmill and stuff. I think it'd be really fun to see used on the tabletop in a load of different games. So make sure to go and check it out. It's all over on their web store right now. So, yeah.
Sweet to the beat. What's up next then?
So the start of last year, I remember sitting on Twitter and I saw a particular Elder Scrolls symbol that was being released from Chip Theory Games. So they were announcing a new tabletop title to be set in the universe, although we had no idea what it was going to be. So whether it be a new board game, a new RPG, or where in Tamriel it would be set. So now they've released information. So Chip Theory Games are going to have officially announced the Elder Scrolls Betrayal of the Second Era, and it's going to be heading to GameFound in October 2022 this year in a board game format. So what I was really excited about this is that Chip Theory Games are working closely with the Elder Scrolls Online team, which means we're going to potentially look at the full scope of the whole game world in Tamriel. So confirming that this particular title will allow players to immerse themselves in the kind of whole world rather than just Skyrim, rather than just the second. It's not capped by any video game progress by the looks of it. So although there's not too much announced yet, what we do know is that it belongs in a board game format. It's going to be 1 to 4 players, and it's going to be a collaborative adventure to investigate the Order of the Black Worm in hopes of foiling the evil plans of Daedric Prince Morag-Bal. So it's quite interesting to see some RPG mechanics in there too. So there's confirmed character building and exploration across the Lordfield universe. So if you've already dipped into some Chip Theory games already, the character creation is not going to become any surprise to you because it's been featured in the previous games as well. So according to Chip Theory, the game's going to be playing in 3 different sessions as part of a whole overarching campaign. So it'll take about an hour and a half to complete one session. But decisions made in the game are going to be hard to replicate in another playthrough because, like the video game, there's going to be different approaches and different progression, different routes and different outcomes depending how you're building. So it's quite an interesting premise. I'm quite keen on seeing this world of that already kind of boasts lore and background and story, because it gives chance for any fantasy lover to slot themselves into it with an already established universe. So it's coming to GameFound in autumn.
One thing that stood out for me is that we saw at the beginning of that they showed off some of the components from Too Many Bones, which is their incredibly luscious, and I think they've described it as the most waterproof game in existence, because you can throw it in a bath and all the components come out again and they're fine. Fascinating. But that's also seems to be translating over into what they do for this as well. So I'd imagine we're going to see lots of very nice neoprene mats. We're going to see lots of lovely chips and all that kind of thing. It'll be interesting to see how much mechanical stuff translates over from that, because Too Many Bones is a very interesting mechanical game. It uses lots of, well, as you know, I never imagined those chips and stuff. Yeah. Play the game with lots of dice and everything as well. So it's a very in-depth and sort of sandboxy style of game. So I'll be interested to see how that translates over into the Elder Scrolls, because there's lots of things to do, especially if they're going to be looking at this idea of like the whole of Tamriel kind of thing. So, I think it's quite cool that they're taking influence from one of their previous games, and you're saying already how ambitious it is, and they are claiming that this next title is one of the most ambitious that they have come up against. So it's quite cool to see where it's going to go. And we've seen Elder Scrolls in loads of different places, whether it be card game, board game, wherever it might be, miniatures game. So it's a new outlook with the wide world of online. So quite cool to look into, really.
I do have to wonder, though, is there going to be some random old guy living in a cave constantly dragging me back for missions when I'm just out trying to kill monsters?
You never know. Maybe, potentially. It is wide world. It is online. It is influenced by online, so you never know what way you're going to go.
Well, there you go. Chip Theory has game if you have coin.
Very good reference. I like it. Very nice.
Down with the kids. I've not played it since Morrowind, I think. But,
right.
Oh, you're quite far out yet. Haven't quite taken an arrow to the knee, Jerry. No,
not any bit of it. But yeah, 1 to 4 players as well. So I do like the idea that you can do these little sort of solo campaigns. and it'll be interesting to see sort of
Good way to learn how to play as well.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So yeah, fascinating stuff. We'll have to keep our eye out for what comes of that in the autumn.
The autumn.
But before we get to them, Dystopian Wars.
Yes. So new pre-orders this month for a whole bunch of new stuff for Dystopian Wars. We're seeing the Imperium and the Crown get some fancy bits and pieces to play around with. The first of these, and the coolest by a country mile, are the Hochmeister is the Hochmeister Battlefleet set, because in a naval war game, why have a ship when you can have a massive underwater walking titan of a robot that
Yes.
stomps through the ocean, pulls out a sword, and cuts your boat in half? I'm sorry, you're not
Cue
tugging
Pacific Rim music.
exactly. You're not tugging away from that quickly, are you? No.
Choo choo, I'm a boat.
So,
They're huge as well.
yeah, these are
A lot of anti-air.
impressive and epic looking miniatures for this one. As you might have imagined, and quite from what I was saying, I really like the look of these. I think it's super cool, this idea of kind of like these massive robots walking along the seabed before suddenly bursting out through the water, sword at the ready to cleave things in half. I will also note it, and Jerry was saying there as well, there are actually options for arming them with guns if you like, but why would you give them guns? Just swords. They can hit the planes out the air.
Would you not go full Pacific Rim and just have one of them
With
hitting
a
somebody
boat.
with a boat?
You would.
Yeah.
I want to see that
katana.
conversion. Yes.
There's
Boat
bound,
in one hand, sword in the other.
there's bound to be
Exactly.
somebody very long and thin that could be wielded like a baseball bat to the head.
I mean, it's that, or you can do the pickup scene where it's just got its hand underneath a frigate.
Yes, just lifting it up out of the water to crush it or something.
But at that
oh my
point,
God, yeah.
At that point, are you playing Dystopian Wars or are you playing Giant Robot in the bathtub?
Yeah.
Hey, I'm all for giant robot in the bathtub. As well as the exceptionally amazing Hochmeister Battlefleet set, there's also some boats. And there should be boats in a naval game, I guess.
Of course.
So we've got the new Konig Battlefleet set there, which is pretty awesome. So it's a good way for you to get started with the Imperium. Start playing around on the tabletop with that. It comes with a large, big Konig class battleship alongside a whole bunch of additional miniatures there as well. As always, this is a mix between sort of plastic components for a lot of the ships, and then you get the resin as well with little plastic add-ons too, so you can play around with the guns and the widgets and all sorts of different things like that. For the Crown as well,
Modular.
they are incredibly modular. But I think we showed off a couple of the different sets last year. Didn't we?
I was going to say, there's a serious amount of love for the Imperium with Dystopian Wars. Do they hate every other faction? This,
I mean,
is this the third or
the
fourth?
Americans.
Oh, I know. You're an American. You're one for the Union, aren't you, Justin?
Nobody cares. Nobody cares about your union. You stay over there, colonial, far away. But I think that is it's definitely the third. It may even be the fourth Imperium battle fleet. I'm not including the Ice Maiden in that, so it could be the fifth Imperial battle fleet. The Imperium get all the toys.
But
It's a good
all
way
the
to get that-
troops.
it's a good way to get that big ship out there with a couple of additional options. I think basically it's a pretty good way of approaching it. They've also got the British Crown support squadrons as well.
Nice.
So this is just a new set of additional ships that you can use for the Crown. So if you want to play as that, you've got those two, which is pretty cool. There's a whole bunch of different frigates and cruisers in there to play around with. And some
They're
little
long and
planes.
thin.
You can wield one of those.
They're very battable.
They look very
Yeah.
stabby as well, don't
Are
they?
those submersibles?
There are some submersibles, yes, as well. Yeah. So a pretty cool little set. So yeah, some awesome stuff there if you want to be sort of building on the Imperium or if you want to build on the Crown. As I said at the beginning, just buy the Hochmeisters. Just everybody buy Hochmeisters and have Hochmeister Wars, I think is the best way to go. They are frankly amazing.
Oh, I'm looking forward to see how some of these are painted as well.
Yes. Yeah. I don't see someone do like water effects dripping off them
Yeah.
as they burst out of the water.
Cover them in seaweed?
Yeah, that would be amazing.
You could do a lot with steam as well, couldn't you?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
all the vents gassing out and stuff.
Yeah. Or you could look to Jerry for his, like, the wave cresting you do on some
Oh,
ships,
yeah,
Jerry.
yeah.
Do that around the legs.
Oh yeah.
That would be cool.
Just break out the heavy gels and the water effects.
Mm.
Doing the drippy water effects should be fairly easy to do as well.
Yeah.
Very
Very
so
nice.
yeah, that could be a lot of fun. Just seeing how people dress them up, I suppose, and then have them stand at the back while the Imperium fleets do all the damage and people can't sink the Ice Maiden. Telling you, anybody who's not playing Imperium in Dystopian Wars is playing it wrong. It's just, it is what it is.
There we go. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yep. So Free, tell me all about Dark Souls.
well, we knew this was coming, okay? So Steamforge Games have had the Dark Souls IP in their back pockets for quite a while now. So being one of their first IPs, we've already seen the Dark Souls board game and the Dark Souls card game over the last couple of years, bringing like death, and, you know, more death to the tabletop. So they've now released more information regarding the upcoming RPG. So if you are a fan of the ridiculously difficult dying simulator, you might want to look at the RPG that is upcoming. So no, fortunately enough, you will not have to pledge into a Kickstarter and wait a year for the release. The title is heading to pre-order this month. So it's as simple as buy the book and it is yours. So considering that Steamforge has asked us, are you prepared to die? You can sure bet that the upcoming title is going to be difficult and tedious. So it utilises D&D 5e rule set with brutal and savage customisations built for the Dark Souls universe. So you're going to be heading into a wild world of sinister. So Dark Souls mechanics have been added. What does that mean? So added will be something called position, so which will warp the 5e rule set into bring theme of Dark Souls into the game. So it's going to combine players' health and stamina together, designing the mechanic position and to gauge how close to a player they are to death. So this is going to increase as the players head off and up their abilities as that goes on. But as you can imagine, combining the two is going to be quite difficult. So speaking of death, it may be obvious to say, but you've got to be prepared to potentially die a lot. So every time you do die, you're going to lose all of your souls collected, which will hinder your progress. Experience. Which is going to hinder your progress every time and stop you from going forward. So you do eventually risk becoming mindless drone by losing an integral part of yourself. So it fits into the whole theme of putting humanity at risk. Plus, if half your party die during combat, you can put that down to a fail and head back to the bonfire to start all over again. All over again. So it's quite, you're going to need your patience. You're certainly going to need your patience. But if you've taken down any boss in any Dark Souls game, you're going to know the different phases that can happen that make the boss really challenging. They change their behaviour when you do a certain amount of damage before they die. So there's certain times at which they'll just change their abilities and you need to adapt to a different custom. So there's a new mechanic called Blooded, and it's going to be adding new abilities to the boss the more they are hacked at in the game. So quite interesting there. And magic has not been capped the amount as it may be through 5e. So it allows players to be a bit more flexible in their magic output, and it allows certain slots and equip spells into slots to utilise in battle. So you're going to need to delicately balance where you're going to use them in your trick to strategy.
Things at the deli. That's the
deli. Yeah, you're going to deli. You're going to deli. Bring in the ham. But the tabletop RPG is going on pre-order this month, so don't worry about heading to Kickstarter. It is going. So I'm not naive. I very much am aware that I will be dying a ton if I give this a go. But it does allow me to explore the world whilst holding hands with teammates rather than go off on my own into the Dark Souls universe and die every 2 seconds.
That's what I was going to ask, because I know nothing about Dark Souls. Here's how little I know. That guy sitting with his back to us in the inside cover of the book with the ridged helmet, I have a model of that sculpted by Boris, and that apparently it must be a homage to Dark Souls. I didn't know that. It's just a nice model.
It's like the poster boy character for Dark Souls. Yeah.
How much of a world is there? Because I've always been of the impression
so much.
you go into
oh my god. Yeah.
You go into a dungeon, you die repeatedly. You go to another dungeon, you die repeatedly. Is there actually lore built in already, or is it all going to have to be sort of, we've got to find a way to move people from one death trap dungeon to another?
There is a ridiculous amount of lore. It's one of those games where every item has like a little story. about it. It's one of those things where, like, but one of the key things about Dark Souls is that it never explicitly tells you anything. You have to go and find it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So it really it's that I find that's the thing that I'm really interested in when it comes to the actual role-playing game. The combat stuff will be very interesting, and I'd like to see how that actually works in practice.
Yeah.
Because obviously D&D combat can take quite a while. So it'll be interesting to see how. One of the things I'll come back to one of the things you mentioned, but the thing that really gets me is that the lore element of this, because there's so much built into it across the 3 games, and then there's Demon Souls as well. I think there's a lot of scope for DMs, GMs, or whatever to tell very interesting stories set within this, and take characters off in very different directions, meet interesting characters, set it in different time periods, because you've got that thing as well worked into it too. The thing that, going back to what you were saying about the health and stuff, that's the thing that's really fascinating. I think that's going to be the thing that will change combat up, because health becomes less of a marker of how dead you are, but a resource in the same sense as a lot of people in Magic would use their die as a resource of health, effectively, because you can use that what was it called again? The ability position. You use the position like stamina in the game to change dice rolls or use abilities and that kind of thing. So you're going to be going like, I've got 20 health. Do I spend 5 of it in order to be able to boost this attack or something? Which then obviously then means that your survivability goes down drastically in a combat. It'll be really fascinating to see how that works together, because, and I think it's something that you raised as well, Justin, this could either be really fun and an interesting way to approach combat, or very monotonous.
Well, here is my big fear for this. So I've played Dark Souls. I didn't like it. I'm not going to lie. And I mean the video game. I played the board game. They did a fantastic job of transferring it across to the tabletop. Unfortunately, it suffered from the same thing as the video game, which put me off it, which is that repetitive grindiness. Imagine being a role-playing group, and every week you get together, you're going to try and kill the big boss, and every week you die, and every week you're coming back to essentially play the same scenario over and over and over and over and over, and it just crushes your will to play it.
This is where
That's my big fear.
This is where I think it'll come down to having the right GM, DM to run this, because I think a lot of groups could end up falling into that trap of it just being the same thing, and it's like
because you expect it to be Dark Souls.
A puzzle to beat kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think if you approach it from the right direction, you could have it as, they failed coming this way. They've been reborn from the bonfire. Maybe something else happens. Things have changed in the world. Something's done this.
Yeah.
Build a little bit more on it and tell a little bit more of a story around it in order to try and get rid of that repetitiveness. But again, it'll come down to how it'll work.
Starting out the campfire again, you're going to maybe have to fight your way back through the world to the boss.
Well, yeah.
Again, as I say, it depends how they'll set that up.
Yeah.
You know, you come. It also depends on the story.
It also comes down to the GM though. Unless there's a specific mechanic where it goes, you go back to the bonfire, and you must do all of this again.
Yeah,
because if I was, even if the rules say you do it this way, if I was running it as a group and they've already worked their way up to the GM, first question I ask is, are you going to go back the same way?
Do you want to try again? Yeah.
And then we just skip the intervening muck because we know they've done it.
See, that's
if they go, I don't want to go back the same way, I want to try going up to the balcony, then that takes the scenario in a different direction. But if they just need to get back to the boss to finish the boss, it's like a raid lockout. You just go straight back to that boss.
I think
continue.
I think this is a great opportunity for Steamforged, and obviously they may fill in a lot of the blanks that we're seeing at the moment. But I think this would be a very good opportunity for Steamforged to do something in a map-based sense. So you know how like Forbidden Lands and stuff has the idea of like, here's the world, or in the case of Dark Souls, here's the city that you've got to explore. There's where you need to be. Now you plot the route that you're going to take through that. Do you go through the underground in order to get to the boss? Do you go over the battlements and that kind of thing? I think that could be very interesting to see how they plot that out and what they do with that, because I think the maps could be a big, awesome bit of that.
It stops it from walking in a straight line. It's like you said, you come back to the bonfire, you choose. Because even when I wasn't patient enough to play through Dark Souls and Demon Souls. I played through Bloodborne.
Neither was I, Free.
I played through Bloodborne, but I watched my friend play Dark Souls and Demon Souls because he was patient enough to do it. But what I really enjoy about this is I think what really scared me on my own in playing Bloodborne was that I was on my own. And I know that sometimes you can get other hunters in to help out, but you are going out with a team in this. So you are going out with a joint strategy in mind. It could potentially, it does take away a lot of the fear for me in that, oh, wow, I'm going to be on my own and I'm going to lose every bit of progress. And you can help other players in that. And it seems a lot more collaborative. And for someone like me who really does enjoy the world, but hasn't had a chance to play it because I quite simply don't have the patience, it gives a lot of people a chance to see the world through a new light and explore the lore a little differently, rather than you've got to find this and the only way you're going to get through this is to go through a boss. It's just a little different, but as you said, it relies on the GM.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's one of the things, the actual creator of the Dark Souls IP was if I remember right, it was a non-native English speaker who moved over to America. And what he was trying to translate into the game was his inability as a youngster, watching movies, reading books, and not fully understanding or fully grasping it. And so I think, if I remember right, he was trying to engineer that into the game. So hopefully they can still maintain that within the RPG as well.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have lots of things that players have to find out that aren't just about killing things.
Well, as well as that, if the RPG's coming out, the board game had miniatures in it as well. So if you do want to play your RPG incorrectly, you can
look at product. The face is going red. He's going to explode.
God.
We need a T-shirt with "You're playing this incorrectly" with a grid and miniatures on it. Yeah.
Your fun is not my fun, and that is not okay.
If you need that extra bit of visualization, Steamforged to forward.
There you go.
We'll see how it goes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued.
So is it pre-order next week?
It's pre-order this month. It's a pre-orders to go live in February.
Exactly. So okay. Well, keep your eye out then if you're interested in RPGing properly or incorrectly around Dark Souls. I seem to remember you just roll. It's all about rolling. Anytime you get in a room, just get the entire party to roll. Just go roll clockwise. I go ahead. Okay, let's go back.
So roll. GM goes, roll for initiative. We're already there, boss.
Yeah, keep going.
Right, Ben, tell me what Paizo and Gale Force have been up to.
Yeah, so Paizo, I can't. Is that what it's saying?
I have no idea. I was looking at
Paizo?
Let's call it Paizo.
Paizo and Gale Force 9 have joined forces to bring a new selection of Pathfinder and Starfinder games to the tabletop. So from one role-playing world to another, or in fact two, I guess. So they're going to be doing new board and card games based around these massive role-playing IPs. The first of which is going to be called Pathfinder Level 20, which kind of sort of turns things on its head. You don't play heroes. In fact, you play poor kobolds who are being hunted by a fighter who just needs to kill a few of you to get to level 20. Hence the name Pathfinder Level 20.
Hiding in a corner screaming, "You no take candle."
Exactly. So in this game, you'll be playing kobolds, as you can see there, the little tiny standees, running around in a cavern being pursued by a fighter that can be one of a few different versions, trying to escape and avoid the grasp of their sword before you meet an ugly demise. The kobold that survives to the very end is declared the winner. However, there are also a couple of additional ways to sort of get towards victory. You can just evade him until the time runs out and he gives up and goes home, or you can try and scare him away, and that can happen through the advent of traps and all sorts of different things. Of course, as I said, you win by being the last kobold alive. So there is nothing to stop you pushing your kobold brothers under the bus or the shield of the advancing fighter so that they bite the dust before you. Because, as I say, as long as you're the one left at the very end and the fighter got to level 20, they don't care about you, so they're going to leave, which is great.
I don't have to be fast, just faster than Ben.
Okay. Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. I think this has the potential to be really, really fun. I love the idea of it sort of, as I say, changing things around when it comes to the D&D, Pathfinder style adventuring on the tabletop. I like the puzzle element for this, moving around and trying to avoid the gaze of the fighter as they advance towards you and stuff as well. I think it'd be really fun to dive in and see what this one's all about. If you are interested in the rules and everything like that, they are available right now for you to go and check out. So you can go and download the PDF and have a look through it. It's not very long, very easy to dive into. There's lots of ways for you to kind of like customize stuff as well with the kobolds and their powers and their abilities, and the fighter as well. So there should be a bunch of replayability in there too. In addition to that, there are 2 more games coming out the rest of this year. So there's going to be one called Starfinder, Pirates of Skydock, and there's also going to be one called Pathfinder, Tall Tales as well. So if you're interested in getting some more Pathfinder and Starfinder onto the tabletop, there are ways to do so through Gale Force 9 and their new partnership. Very cool indeed.
It reminds me so much of Dungeon Master.
Yes.
When you'd be sitting there with your lovely dungeon full of imps and flies and everything else, and you're having a grand old time, and you just hear the Lord of the Land approaches. I was like, no. And then you're just throwing imps at him to go away.
It reminds me of Boss Monster.
Yes, a little bit of that as well. Yeah.
I get that.
I like
Leave me be. Let me get to level 20.
Yeah. I think this one sounds great. It'd be fun to maybe give this a go in the future. We'll see. So
for sure.
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
if nothing else, you're one step away from hunting boars in the forest at that point.
Yes.
All I need to do is hunt boars in the forest.
We can kill enough of them. But
how do you kill that which has no life?
Moving on from board and card games, we're now looking at the news from Games Workshop. So, sooner than I imagined, we are now going to be able to pre-order Eldritch Omens this weekend. So on Saturday, you'll be able to pick up the box set, which we've talked about before in the past, so we won't gild the lily too much on this. Comes with the new plastic Autarch, the Rangers, the Shroud Runners, the Warpsmith, the Chosen, and the new old Forge/Mauler Fiend as well. So there's pretty much everything in there is new apart from that big monster. So pretty good stuff there. Obviously, an early chance for you to pick up the Eldar stuff if you want to go and dive in and play around with it before anybody else does. Have no fear, though. Don't worry. If you miss out on this, then there will obviously be all of these miniatures released in the future, maybe 3 or 4 weeks down the line with the new codex and everything as well. So this isn't your only chance, but if you want to get a hold of this stuff now, then this is obviously the weekend to pre-order it.
You say that, but in my heart of hearts, what I want to happen, because I know it will annoy so many Eldar players, is...
Oh, stop.
Do you remember the Death Copters?
I do. They were only ever available in Blackreach.
And I think there were 3 of them as well. I can't be entirely certain. Yeah. But yeah, they've got 3 more flyers here.
Mm-hmm.
That would be... It would just be so much fun if they did that.
3 more!
Oh, that'd be so mean.
They've not
they
annoyed...
would lose so much money.
No, they never worried them before. I think irritating people is more... their métier on that.
They are working on the currency of enraged gamers.
It's like they harvest their anguish.
I mean, you're an Eldari player. What do you think of them, Ben? Are you?
I like all of the new miniatures. I think all of them are cool. I don't think I'll add all of them to my force.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not playing the Samhan, however you want to say their name. I'm not playing them. Sammy Hammy. So I don't think I'll be using the Shroud Runners, but I'll definitely be using the Rangers and the Autarch at some point. But Jerry has also pointed towards some of the new miniatures as well. So these are all the ones that were previewed last week at the event that we thought maybe would finally gift with amazing
some Groot-tastic news, yeah.
Nothing like that, unfortunately. Instead, we got a new look at the avatar of Khaine, as you can see there, who's looking pretty swish. Comes with a couple of different weapon options because the Wailing Doom can appear in different forms. So you've got the traditional sword, lots of nice head options as well. So you can have it looking a little bit more like a slightly more elven version of him from like fantasy, or you could play around with it being very sci-fi as well. I particularly like the idea of running something like the helmet and the axe, although the helmet and the spear does have a very kind of Leonidas style look to it, which I think is pretty cool.
Reminds me of the old Epic Avatar who had the same loadout. This, I'm not a fan of the faced one.
Okay.
I like that one. I like the hair on that one.
They specifically said, and I imagine this has been retconned to hell and back, the avatar was a suit of armor that sat empty, and when they needed to summon him to war, they'd open the door, push an elf prince in who's been a bit remiss, close the door, and after the screams had stopped, the armor was animated with molten fury and would stride out. Is it? So why has it got a face then?
Yeah.
He's about 15 feet taller than an Eldar, and he's got a face.
I'm going to assume it's just a big statue, but then why would he have hair?
Why would he have hair?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they threw in a named character,
Yeah, maybe.
Take the helmet off, you're now bulletproof.
Yeah. But this obviously stands way bigger than the original avatar. who is only just a bit bigger than a Primaris Space Marine nowadays, whereas this one obviously is towering, and you'll see in some of the pictures later on exactly just how big he is.
Yeah.
Well, are we talking like Primarch sized?
Well, you'll see. He's probably a little bit taller than Robooti Girly Man. So we also got a new look at one of the Phoenix Lords as well. So Morgan Ra is coming back, looking very cool, looking very heavy metal cover of a rock album from the 90s.
Iron Maiden.
And even now, actually.
My gun is not deadly enough. Let's make it a sight.
Exactly.
You could swap that out for a guitar quite easily, couldn't you?
Easily could.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that. Do you know the name of it? In Eldar?
Go on.
It's the Mugatar.
Oh, yes, it is. Yeah.
How wonderful.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I quite like it. I like it because they haven't really changed him.
Yeah.
The only thing
He's
they've done
just
is
as mean as he is. Yeah.
they've just given him a coat.
Yes.
Otherwise, the armor, the weapon, even the
the weird backpack
and the thing is all pretty much identical to the 30-year-old sculpt.
Exactly.
So he's found a trench coat in the past 30 years.
And he's found some rocks to stand on as well.
And some rocks to stand on.
Not just foot on rock, foot onto rock.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Must
There's
rock hard.
also one of the most forgotten of all the Aspect Warrior shrines, the Shining Spears, who again haven't been updated for 30 odd years, are getting a new plastic kit. So you get this very sleek new look to the Shining Spears here. I think look very nice.
White armor on white background, GW, please don't.
Yeah.
Who is your photographer?
Is it me?
Yeah. But if we're seeing the Shining Spears coming out as a Aspect Warrior kit in plastic, which is great to see, maybe we'll see them get their Phoenix Lord, who kind of rode off into the distance and never came back.
That's true.
Here's one thing I really dislike about these.
Go on.
The same old crappy flying bases. GW, change it.
Oh, the clear ones, yeah. Especially as they've been doing so much more with the kind of like curved ones and stuff nowadays.
Exactly.
I suppose, but, yeah.
Why are they on these?
Honestly,
this is
don't mind.
unnecessary.
I imagine it's for balance.
It's just
It
going
might
to
just
break
be.
off.
Yeah.
No, stop it, workshop. Stop it.
Just never glue them in.
Yeah.
Never glue them
Your
in.
mistake is gluing them in.
Yeah.
If they're the same stands as the Dark Eldar jet bikes have,
Well,
and I imagine they are,
stances.
they're ball socket at the end. So,
Yeah, so put a bit of blue tack on the end and just wiggle it around.
weirdly, I use hobby tack. It's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
glue that stays tacky forever,
Mhm.
and it means you can stick them on and then pivot them,
Oh,
and
nice.
then take them off at the end.
Yeah.
So I don't mind the stand's a
Yeah.
stand.
We also got the preview for Kill Team as well. So this revealed that the next Kill Team that's going to be in there, at least one of the factions anyway, is going to be one of the Corsair Void Scarred. So anyone who knows their Eldar will know that there are sort of the Eldari, the Ajiani, and then there are the Drukhari, and then there are those Eldar in the middle. So you've got the likes of the
Space
Exodus and the
pirates.
Corse. Exactly. Big old elf space pirates. As someone has already said, and I think they even said it in the reveal, why do they have a normal bird? Make it a parrot. They're pirates. So I'm looking forward to a lot of people repainting that as a parrot.
Oh, yeah.
That might be what space parrots look like, though, in the
That is
41st
true.
millennia.
That's true.
And he's got slight vibes like that. He's halfway undressed to become a Dark Eldar. So, maybe he was being just a little bit edgy, a little bit emo, and went to a Blackbird.
That's true.
Someone will paint it as a macaw, though, won't
They
they?
will.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so this is obviously going to be another one of the sets for Kill Team, which then will graduate over into Warhammer 40,000 as well. This also builds into something that was pretty fascinating about what they described about the Codex. So the Codex is only a couple of pages shy of the big Space Marine one, which is massive anyway.
Massive.
It's going to include rules for the Aziani, so the sort of traditional Eldar. He's that really awesome Wood Elf character.
He's Skaw the Falconer.
That's the one.
And the model came with a bird that was on the end of a little tether, exactly like that.
Oh,
And that's
a nice little
what's,
callback.
yeah, I assume that's what they've done it for. Maybe
Yeah.
they haven't. Maybe nobody at GW remembers.
They're all too young.
So, do you know what would be a good idea? We've done that before. No.
I see they've maybe cycled new staff in it. It's like, lads, I have a brilliant idea, and they don't realize they've done it before.
It's possible.
no.
The Codex will also-
Next thing you know, it's going to be, lads, I know what the orcs need: a big dino-style monster.
There we go. As well as the rules for the Aziani in the Codex, there's also going to be rules for the Ynnari in there. So it's kind of like the Triumvirate as well, which sort of brought together a whole bunch of different elements of the Eldari. There's also going to be rules for the Harlequins and Corsairs in there. So there's everything in one book that allows you to play with everything in one army, which is pretty cool. And there you go. That's how big the new Avatar is. You weren't
lying. You were not lying, Ben.
Mm-hmm. I'd say he's probably about as tall as some of those Gothic ruins, if you put it in perspective, which is pretty cool. So a very towering individual with a big old shock of hair.
I was going to say, when you take off his helmet, he is significantly smaller, though. Drastically smaller.
You'll also find he's wearing platforms or something. That'd be
the most exciting part of this entire thing is those.
Guardians.
The new Guardians, yeah.
Not the new Guardian. The fact that Storm Guardians are once again available.
Yeah, rather
Storm
than
Guardians
being an add-on. Yeah,
they haven't been available in donkey's years.
Mm-hmm. So good stuff there for the Eldar. I just wanted to point out as well that during the preview, there was a very sort of offhand reveal of a new logo for Warhammer the Horus Heresy, which means it's going to be folded potentially more into the general fold of Games Workshop. There was nothing to do with the plastic set that is the best kept not secret of the last year or so. But they did also show off this massive, huge, hulking demon, which is Kabadur, who is the demon that Sanguinius fought outside the Walls of Terror. Had his back broken, spoilers. But if you're going to be playing out the Siege of Terror, then you definitely need a massive chaos demon to go up against the angelic form of Sanguinius on the tabletop. A lot of people were like, oh, wow, look at this lovely new plastic miniature. I'm sorry. No, it's resin. So, yeah, good luck, I guess.
It does look pretty.
Big boy.
Do some extra shifts.
Remortgage your house. Sell your left kidney.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you just said how that was properly supposed to be said, because me in my Cockney head was going Kabanda.
Kabanda.
Yeah.
Kabanda.
So I'm glad you said it correctly now.
Kabanda. But yeah, a very impressive miniature, as I think a lot of people have already said, just to show that it's going to be incredibly expensive. But, I guess what you see is what you get, massive amount of detail. The thing that for me that was great was the fact that they're doing this sort of Warhammer Horus Heresy thing. A lot of people have been sort of whispering in the warp that we're going to be getting a kind of plastic set for the Horus Heresy that will include some of the miniatures that we've seen in the past released in plastic that came out through Betrayal at Calth and stuff, boxed up into a new game or something set around the Horus Heresy. It would certainly make sense. So
there was a brilliant scene from one of the novels. I think it was Devastation of Baal, where he actually broke back into the Materium, but his portal was in the wrong place, so he was just left in space staring at Baal, the Blood Angel's homeworld, just in rage, not being able to reach it.
There is some detail in this, though. Well,
really,
resin,
the stuff is gorgeous.
Just including in the wings and all of the skulls.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of the old Trish Carden style spells in many ways, especially with the detail worked into the skin and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Although, this reminds me, not next week, but the following, Total Warhammer 3 is dropping.
It is, yeah. We can play as demons. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Trust me and my buddies, we've already got like a 5-person multiplayer set up.
Very nice.
Very
cool.
It's going to be really fun.
But yeah, some interesting news there for 40K and potentially the future of Horus Heresy. It'd be interesting to see what the Specialist Games team do on that.
Is it going to stay with Specialist then? Have they said that?
Well, I'm assuming it will do. I would assume that it's going to be handled by the same team that work on the likes of Necromunda and Middle Earth and all those kind of games.
I suppose the fact that Chuckles there is resin kind of seems like it's going to stay with Specialist.
They'll be like, hey, you can build some traitors and loyalists, but then if you want anything else, you're going to have to buy the Finecast stuff. Well, not Finecast, but resin.
Forge World.
Yeah, Forge World resin. Moving away from the grimdark future, just for a little bit, we're going to be back, don't worry. There's a lot to talk about. We also went to the Mortal Realms because there is going to be a new battle box coming up for Age of Sigmar. For those people who are collecting the Nighthaunt or the Daughters of Khaine, there is going to be a new set coming up called Arena of Shades, which will include 2 new heroes for you to play as. The first of those is the Scriptor Mortis, which is a man who clearly really likes doing taxes. But the worst
kind of undead need an accountant.
Yeah, exactly. So he actually now scribes down the souls of those that now belong to Nagash, and is forever taunted to do so by his malevolent majesty. You also have a couple of new miniatures sort of alongside him. So those are the Craven Throne Guard that you're seeing there. So the Nighthaunt finally get some more ranged attacks. Yay! I think they look pretty cool. They look like Craven Guard, as you might have imagined from the name. They kind of like hobbled around on the walls. They kind of remind me a little bit weirdly of the vultures from the Robin Hood TV show. When they had the big hunched over and they were walking.
Yeah.
Concert heads on them and stuff.
Robin Hood movie, sorry, the Disney one. Very cool. Exactly. They're going to be doing that through the halls and stuff. Yeah. There is also a new miniature for the Daughters of Khaine. They get the High Gladiatrix, who can be assembled in a couple of different ways with different heads and weapon options. As a lot of people pointed out, could be very good for use as a sort of Drakari character as well, if you wanted to. I've already seen... Exactly. I've already seen people looking at the Scriptor Mortis and trying to do something Blanchitsu with it for 40k, like turning it into like a big servitor or something, or like a servitor scribe. I think that could be really cool. So some interesting new models for both sides. Obviously, it's the herald of their new battle tomes coming out. As people pointed out, the Daughters of Khaine only got one last year, but they're getting another one soon. There we go. But,
like buses.
Night buses, yeah. But some interesting options there for Warhammer Age of Sigmar, building on two of the more sort of interesting and exotic factions in the game that I think deserve a little bit more time and sun. So very nice indeed. There are a couple more battle tomes coming out as well in the future. The Fireslayers and the Eiseneth Deep King get their battle tomes next, so watch out for those. And then there's two more booked in before the end of the summer as well. So avoiding any kind of changes in the landscape of the universe. There should be lots of things for Age of Sigmar players to dive into.
Cool.
But there we go.
Way.
So, wrapping up the news this week,
Yes.
Ben, bring me back to my childhood.
So, we head back into the grimdark future of Jerry's past. And we dive into Necromunda once more because there was another teaser trailer, which was very Borderlands, for the Ash Wastes expansion. So Necromunda, up until this point, has been primarily sort of focused around, weirdly, Hive Primus and the battles between the different houses as they fought around through the Undercity for Archaeotech and all sorts of different things. However, this new expansion that is lined up for later this year is going to take things beyond the bounds of Hive Primus and into the Ash Wastes, where you're going to be heading out at the head of convoys, as you can see here, of vehicles, as these poor Orlocks are.
Give me all the Orlock right now.
Before they get attacked by gangers and muties and all sorts of different things. I would imagine there's going to be some very dangerous wildlife out there as well, in sort of like a really big expansion to the campaign nature of Necromunda. So rather than just having to fight through the tight confines of the Underhive, you'll be able to head out into the plains and undertake loads of different missions there. But yeah, the thing that's really fascinating to me is that it's obviously good they're going to expand out into new gangs and a new box set. So one of the things that first came to mind was going back to some of the artwork that was shown off. I think this was in 2017, where they talked about what was going to be done for the Ash Waste Nomads. Now, the Ash Waste Nomads, this was weird. This was the time that I was getting into Warhammer. They were a specialist sort of sideline gang that were kind of done as like an addition to the original Necromunda back in the day, which was very cool. I even really want... Yes. Oh, my God.
Of course, Jerry has it. Of course, Jerry
Cal Jericho. Oh, yeah.
Cal Jericho.
We have to rename Jerry's house just the Reliquary.
Cal Jericho and Scabs were only the first 2 pages of issue 4. The rest of this issue is the Ash Waste Nomad rules. The vehicle rules and the campaign for Necro.
I genuinely think that that's going to be what they're going to be effectively reviving when it comes to this. So we're going to have vehicle rules in there.
It's already here.
Well, yeah. You're going to have
dirt bikes and stuff.
Yeah. Well, that I would imagine that's definitely going to be the case. They've already said that they're going to have that massive sort of like land train that you saw in the trailer there. So that's going to be moving around on the tabletop. They've also said that they're going to be playing around with the idea of terrain in a different sense because it's meant to be very open in the sort of wastelands outside Hive Primus. So they're going to be playing around with the kind of way that games play in that regard. I will be fascinated to see them doing things like this kind of cavalry with the weird alien creatures on them. They've also mentioned, obviously, the likelihood is we're going to see the Ash Waste Nomads. That's a given, I would assume. But beyond that, they've also talked about the idea of mutants and all that kind of thing as well. A lot of the scabs and that kind of thing at the same time. There's lots of little tiny factions within Necromunda that they said they're going to try and bring back to the fore. And if you're a Necromunda lover from sort of days past, they have been talking about lots of different things that they did back then that they want to try and revive again. So,
I mean, like settlement defense missions.
Currently, is that not in Necro? Surely that was whole part and parcel of Necro. You build your settlement and you have to defend your territory.
Oh, that's still there.
I think desert
desert
settlement defenses.
Justin means that like a big sort of outpost somewhere or something.
Yeah, not just like you're in the middle of the hive sump and mutants are coming up from the sewage pipes that somebody unblocked on accident.
It'd be interesting because they've not done any of the outlaw gangs. Yes,
pretty much. Yeah.
So we've not seen the Spires themselves, who were scumbags, not seen the Redemptionists, not seen the Scavies or Scalies. The Beastmasters as hired guns, the pit fighters, there was a host of things.
Yeah.
Oh, Ratskin Scouts, they'll not come back.
Yeah. Well, no, they won't. No, they won't in the same way. No.
That's all right. Doesn't matter. I've about 60 of them.
They
have been mentioned in the lore.
Have they? Yeah, but they won't come back looking like Native Americans.
No, that would be slightly awkward. Yeah. One of the
time.
Yeah, one of the things that I will say about this is that a lot of people were talking in the comments, and I think it was maybe this article about how there's so much you need to buy in order to get into Necromunda.
Yeah.
In actual fact, they've pared it down a lot.
All right.
So the initial release of Necromunda was obviously it came out with the core rulebook, and then they did the Gang Wars books, of which there were like 6 or something.
The stat cards, oh god, trying to get
the stat cards and all that kind of thing, and then there were expansion books and all that kind of stuff. So it was very hard to dive in and play
keep up with. Yeah.
Now, very similar to 40k, and well, any of the Games Workshop games really, you just need to buy the core rulebook, and then there is a house book that comes with that. Well, that you need to buy separate to that, which is effectively your codex for your gang. So, say you're playing as the Goliaths, you get the core rulebook and you buy the House of Chains. Those are the only 2 books you will need to play the game. The miniatures themselves, when it comes to Games Workshop prices, they're pretty darn cheap. Like I got those Palanites for, I think it was under 20 quid for that box, and that's all you're ever going to need model-wise, probably, to play the basics of the game. If you want to then expand, then there are a couple of additional books you need to pick up. Like there's like a Scum book, and there's the Outcast book and all that kind of thing. And then, of course, you've got lots of the hired guns from Forge World and all that kind of stuff too. But the very basics of getting into Necromunda now is actually probably in the best place it's been in a while. And I must admit, I was looking at some stuff after playing around with the Palanite kits and going, oh, it'd be very nice to make a Goliath gang, wouldn't it? Oh, it'd be nice to do some Escher. They're cool with all their punk hairstyles.
What's your favourite gang then, Ben?
Well, I kind of like the idea of the Palanites because of the idea of like the police force underneath the sort of not quite Arbites underneath the city, sort of fighting to control it. But I'm leaning towards the Goliaths because I just love the big brute nature of them, and I'd love to do something really fun and bloody with them and give them like big punk colourful things and like all that kind of stuff. I think that would be really cool. I also really like the Delac or Delaque, as I used to call them, because I was like, I've only ever read these words.
could go either way on that one.
Because I love that kind of like spy nature.
We serve the finest rat.
Yeah, exactly. I think if you're going to dive into anything that's like play grimdark, but don't have to worry about buying too much, currently Necromunda seems like the best place to approach. Well, the best place to approach that, I think.
And if you're in the mood to do a bit of scratch building your own table for it is a lot of fun.
Exactly, yeah. A lot of people have also said that the new starter set's really good too, because that comes with the Delac and the Escher in it, fighting for control of the Underhive. Comes with the board that you can play on, but obviously you can then take all those terrain pieces and play it out on something bigger as well. I believe they even did things in some of the White Dwarfs for like solo play as well. I think it was like Monster Hunt scenarios. Nice. I think Ash Barker was playing through a couple of them on his channel back during the pandemic, so they put some things in there for the in White Dwarf playing solo, which is pretty cool. Very good for league play and all that kind of thing. And mechanically, it's not as egregious, I'll say, as the likes of Kill Team, which is sort of like a widget to do what now?
I move how many pentagrams?
Exactly. Necromunda still uses, tape measures and inches and all that kind of thing as well. So it's very
Numbers.
Real numbers. And
Numbers, not ships.
It even has stat lines that are almost direct mirrors of the new 40k stuff as well. So it has the 4+ of ballistic fields and all that kind of thing as well. So it's very much focused on the idea of it being quick and easy to play and stuff like that. So maybe I'm just trying to sell Necromunda to myself at the moment.
Justifying it, yeah.
I've got the core set and an Orlok set.
Yeah.
I have not had the chance to play it, unfortunately. But
yeah,
it's a segment of 40k that I do love, just the background and the backstory of it. So instead of being like a galaxy-wide, expansive narrative, no, it's just one world, one city, bad things happening. Yeah. You're a ganger.
Quite contained.
That's the thing that's been that's the thing that I think really sells it to me. The idea that you are focusing in on almost the day-to-day life of the normal citizens and gangers that have to try and survive.
Gives you a better sense of scope.
Exactly.
So. Oh.
Ooh la la.
We want that on the tabletop. I'm sure they will. They will probably bring that back. So.
It's part of the land train.
Exactly. Yeah. I should also point out as well, they put some fun stuff in there for Necromunda at the moment, where you can actually have it done through a games master as well and telling a story, which is pretty cool.
That's cool.
If you want to go back to the kind of old school way of playing, like Rogue Tradery, Necromunda style things, I've got that in there too, which is pretty nice.
Handy,
but
very handy.
Going back to the ash waste thing,
I have rabies. You can just got bit by a rat.
Going back to the ash waste thing for a second as well, just to round things off, they have said that there's going to be a new box set coming out for that. So that will sit alongside, I would assume, the core set that's available at the moment for Necromunda. There's also going to be new boxes for the different gangs, so nomads and all that kind of thing as well, muties and stuff. And then there'll be a couple of books as well. So there'll probably be books for each of the gangs and then maybe a new expansion book as well. So we shall see. Maybe it'll be a book bonanza once more. But if nothing else, it'll be like Gorka Morka that everybody wants, just without the orcs. But there we go. So, yeah.
Yeti Raider Unks for the win. That's a whole cornucopia of news. So I think we need to take a break. When we come back, we'll take a look at some 3D printing and Kickstarters. Okay, so we are back and it's time to look at some 3D printing. Ben.
We are going to be looking at the offerings from Raging Heroes for the month of February 2022. I will say we're nearly ready for Tuesday, so watch out for that.
We're already past a Tuesday that was a Wednesday. Or
we're past the prequel.
Yeah, the Tuesday that was actually a Wednesday, but it was really a Tuesday.
Yeah, but Raging Heroes and their Heroes Infinite Patreon have now extended to producing a new range of High Elves of the Eternal Summits. So pretty damn good if you're trying to build an army of awesome elves that could be used as Lumineth Realm Lords, but could be used in pretty much every other game if you wanted to as well. As is the case with all of their Patreon releases, this one comes with a whole range of pretty epic-looking characters, some on foot, some on the back of impressive mounts. Other miniatures include some really awesome sort of troops as well. So you've got lots of fellows armed with a range of different weapons that you could use as your kind of like core of your army. You then have big monsters, and as is the case when it comes to a lot of the Patreon releases.
My lord's on fire.
The ever reborn king, unless he burns to death this time. There's also a whole bunch of epic terrain in there at the same time as well.
Stopping cowbell.
Well, I haven't actually had a look at see if there were any cowbells in this one, but there's some very awesome stuff in there if you like the idea of kind of very ethereal elves, I think would be the way to approach this. Lots of flowing cloaks, blowing hair, and impressive magical implements.
They just look real, don't they?
Yes. There's a very techless-like character there as well.
Yeah, there is. There's also a phoenix here that looks like the offspring of a phoenix and a biblical angel.
It's apparently peacock griffin mix.
Yeah. I want all
some kind of
wings.
Gila monster in there.
A griffock.
A griffock.
A pee-in.
The griff. No.
Only the male. I'm not texting that bird.
It's a very impressive selection that falls into the same categories as they used in the past as well. So you've got your sort of basic pledge. I say basic; it's full of awesome miniatures, and then you can expand it with the Overlord pledge, which then comes with additional sort of alternative poses and stuff for a lot of the different miniatures. And then you also get things like the impressive centerpiece, as you can see there as well. So if you wanted to bring the Living Mountain to the tabletop as a big statement piece, then you have that option, which is pretty cool. But,
people pining for the grand. Look no further. It's all floating rocks and waterfalls.
Absolutely.
But,
Take a climb.
It's interesting stuff. Some of it I really like. Some of it not so much.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those are fairly decent looking elite spearmen.
No cow horned helmets as well.
No,
I mean, there's a couple of horns on top of the banner, but that's about it.
There's a few overly dramatic. These aren't as bad as some of the other cow horns we've seen. I'm not a fan of the bows. GW did this as well.
They're very elvish. Very, very elvish.
Yeah, but that double draw on the top is weird.
All you would do is end up with castanets.
Is it to fire 2 arrows?
Nope.
More strength behind it?
No, again, that wouldn't work. Physics gets in the way there. GW did it. I want to say GW may have even had 3 strings on their elven bows with multiple limbs, and it just looks like somebody's tried to make a harp and failed, and somebody went, what are you going to do with a 3-string harp? I'll sell it to the bowman. They don't know any better. Again, here, I mean, every time you fire an arrow, you get some sort of castanet clicker as the 2 bits hit together.
Bell chime, ding.
Yeah, you're right.
That would be a quite interesting sound to hear if you were like on a battlefield. You just hear the clack, 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 and then loads of arrows came flying towards you.
Oh, don't worry. They wouldn't have the power to fly towards you. You'd know that the archer regiment has once again failed to actually hit anything, as all their arrows hit 2 feet in front of them.
I like the ones above I like the ones above the cavalry. Those sword masters, I think they're pretty cool.
Yeah,
almost katana style blades. Katana slice. Almost like a Falchion style as well.
And then the what's it, Sashimono?
Banners
on the back. So,
the back banners, very cool. I'm not sure about the riders for the cavalry, but I like the actual cavalry themselves. I think that's a cool take on like a big horned deery style beast. Yeah. That's quite nice.
Yeah. I quite like the mounts.
More chickens.
It is.
Shrine of the Phoenix.
I'd love to see that the Phoenix, the Griffin, Peacock equivalent painted pale, white feathers.
Oh, yeah, that would be nice, yeah. It would certainly fit in with their idea of being slightly more heavenly and celestial, I think, which is pretty cool. That is cool, though. I like that. That's very nice.
Just needs more eyes. Well, I suppose it's got plenty of eyes down there.
Oh my God. Do a mutated version. Yeah, do them as eyes. Paint them as eyes.
That's very creepy, isn't it?
But that would be full-on biblical angel then. You're just missing rings within rings.
I know exactly what they'd be painted as if that was a kingdom of...
Right,
well, we can leave that alone, man. Leave that alone. Family show.
Whoa, what? I didn't even get to say. Oh, okay.
Didn't even need to finish the game. Look, and if you two want to add a load of bonsai trees to your tabletop...
they're really cool. I
love them.
An interesting idea, especially considering how oriental the elves are sort of structured.
The focus of it now, yeah.
Actually having bonsai style trees instead of regular straight up and down trees.
I like those.
Avatar.
Yeah, well, actually, in a way, yeah, very true.
Well, if you look at the ring segments up the top.
Yes, those are the things that I really liked. I like that kind of weird stone geometry, I guess. Very cool.
Broken portals.
Yeah, broken portals or like summoning circles, potentially. That's really nice. It's really cool. Yeah.
Wacky fun.
I think a few of those pieces could be nice if they were done sort of sci-fi as well, because you could use those rings to be kind of like ancient Wraithbone portals or something if you're doing Eldari-based stuff.
You could. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, those obelisks are a little bit more sort of Middle Eastern, aren't they? Which is kind of cool.
Or if you're planning on doing the Fortress of Solitude.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. You too can kill Zod.
Nice.
Spoilers.
Is it?
It's the best of the Spy. It's the best of the Superman films. So
I mean,
that's not saying much, but of the modern Superman.
I mean, we actually got to stand in Smallville.
Yeah. We did actually. That was really cool. Yeah. We got to go down the street where it was all filmed. That was nice. Yeah.
Shocking stuff.
Yeah. But yeah, some really cool stuff there. And as we always say when it comes to this stuff, it looks very complicated, but there is a very good community of people behind Raging Heroes over on Facebook and as part of the actual Patreon themselves and over on their website, who will help you out when it comes to printing a lot of this stuff. So even though it might look daunting, a lot of it's done as sub-assemblies and different pieces and that kind of thing.
That answers my question. Because I was about to ask, normally when they do this, obviously they have the Patreon, but they also have their own platform.
Yes, over on Heroes Infinite.
And in this case, these are
only available
from themselves, essentially. So you can get the rest on Patreon, but you can't get these.
They're gorgeous.
Which is what?
Standing
that's
on a weapon?
Yeah.
He's jumping off it. Yeah.
It's based on the what was the brothers and sisters in Warhammer Fantasy? Was it Eltharion and someone else? I can't remember their names, but they basically fought together, didn't they? And they kind of reimagined it for Age of Sigmar with a miniature that's very similar to that, where one of them's leaping off the weapon of the other. Yeah. But,
after my
no,
time.
it wasn't Eltharion. It was a different one. But anyway,
well, Eltharion's the Grim Warden of
Torvaries.
Yeah,
so. He's the one who got turned into the ghostly armor, isn't he? Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Spoilers.
Yeah. He's dead now.
Spoiler-filled episode this week.
Spoilers.
I like that one though. I like that. I think that'd be cool to do if you kind of separated them and maybe had him leaping off a rock. In doing like a parkour thing to the side of her. I think that'd be kind of cool.
Or you could just have him landing into the side of the head of an orc.
That could be cool.
Just knocking it down.
The floor is realistically, it should be a Slaneshi demon, probably.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I'm not sure if they're going for Tyrion and the Everqueen there, or they're precursors. Could be.
No, it was. I need to work that out. I'm sure I'll mention it in the comments or something.
They must have. Oh yeah, just let the commenters do it. It saves us having to do any work.
Yeah,
I tuned out.
Fill our knowledge.
Once they went, Eltharion's blind. No, he's not blind. He's got his eyes back. No, he's a suit of ghostly armor now. He's got. You know what? Check, please.
He definitely doesn't have any eyes anymore. Though.
No, that is very true.
Yeah, well, that's one problem fixed.
Yeah.
Can he still see? So there you are. Heroes Infinite from Raging Heroes. If you fancy getting high with some elves, then you can definitely do that. Interesting way to go.
Mm-hmm.
Did you win one of our prizes? Find out on our prize claim center over at OnTableTop.com. Here we list all our previous prizes and those who have won. If you see your username, fill out the form to claim your prize. All prizes must be claimed within 30 days.
Wrapping things up this week, we have a pair of Kickstarters kicking off. I picked this one.
You did, yeah.
I did pick this one, yeah. Go team me. And this is Treasure Island by Iain Lovecraft. Now, is it because I'm such a huge fan of Call of Cthulhu or his name's Lovecraft? Might be a little bit. Has that got anything to do with this Kickstarter? No, not in any way, shape, or form. So this is a piratical Kickstarter, and it's all encompassing, all pervasive, shall we say. It's a Treasure Island adventure module based on the book of the same name, and it has everything you need to replay as an RPG, as a tabletop adventure, or if you don't fancy doing I'm going to say historically accurate Treasure Island, there's also the possibility for vampires and ethereal otherworldly creatures as well. And if none of that floats your boat, then there's a whole host of scenery and terrain that could be used for other games. So things like Blood and Plunder or Blood and Steel, which is going to be going to Mexico for the colonial warfare there. These are obviously ideal for us. Multi-layer buildings. My favorite is probably
as well. Yeah.
My favorite is the ship. The ship, we'll get to it later on.
Gorgeous.
The ship is
Cannon Tower is lovely.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to do an entire table of this terrain.
Yeah, imagine you're not going to be alone in that. Because you've got...
you could do a little bit Pirates of the Caribbean.
For sure.
Yeah. Like I say,
that's gorgeous.
It's such a complete one-stop shop for that story.
Yeah.
If you need to be able to get, I haven't seen a Blind Pew model to kick things off, actually, but, everybody else is kicking right there. Barring him, you've got the cabin boy and you've got the various pirates and all of the equipment required to load and unload in and around the Caribbean.
Or leap onto and then onto a ship.
Yeah, well, that too. That very much that too.
That's cool. I like it's not the most impressive thing, but the pier set is a nice thing for making like a very interesting tabletop. Because imagine you've got to fight over that, but there's only certain ways to do it, and then if you want to risk it, you've got to leap over the gaps and that kind of thing.
Well, everyone needs a gallows.
Right.
Yeah. Oh wow, that's a nice.
I wonder if there's instructions on how to do those sails.
Would you do rigging on that one, Jerry?
No.
If you want the attached canvas sails, you're going to have to.
No. That's why God invented superglue. Here we have, so after the sort of initial deluge, we start getting into the figures. So Long John and Jem, good old Jem, he'll survive.
Playboy.
Lady Jane Silver, so going a bit off book. Alfonso Rodriguez.
Where did my father?
I've seen a lot of these being painted up. This guy.
Is there a dead Tom? There needs to be. I know he's not in the actual book. There needs to be a dead Tom. Why do they call him Dead Tom? Because Dead Tom's dead. That's why we call him Dead Tom. I love it.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
These hats are beautiful.
Yeah.
I love the Spanish ambassador.
Yeah.
He reminds me of, I can't remember the actor's name, who played Drake in Blackadder. He has a very similar look.
Oh.
You may remember him as being the proper Arthur Dent for the proper adaptation of Hitchhiker's Guide. Not these other terrible ones.
Now.
Yeah.
Anyway, him.
Oh.
But then we get into the
I love that.
The more fantasy-esque parts, and this is where things start really going off book.
I'm fine with this.
The poor drowned sailor, what's that? Aboleth.
Yeah, it's a D&D monster, yeah.
Could be, but I look at that and I think Knucker for Trident Realms.
Oh, yeah.
That would do the job there as well, quite lovely.
A sea hag.
A sea hag and beauty.
It's her when she wants to present a inviting front.
That's the one.
Yes, that come hither, my love.
Yeah, come hither, now I kill you.
And fishmen.
Yes.
Lovely, lovely fishmen.
Oh, they're great.
I did see someone try and do like sci-fi fishmen one time. They had fish tanks.
I have an interesting story about fishmen in a Warren-esque sideline conversation.
Yeah. Do it while I find the boat.
So fishmen have always been like a little bit of a joke in sort of Games Workshop.
Yep.
Because they've always said, "Oh, we'll do fishmen," and then they never really did. But they were talking about it recently on a hobby hangout, and they were saying, "I wonder where they got that name from." And they were talking about fishmen and how it's actually been used as a joke for all the interns that come through, where they'll have it written on a board somewhere with lots of ideas underneath. And then people will come in and they'll be like, "Oh, fishmen, we're going to do fishmen." And they're like, "No, we never do fishmen." And it's becoming one of these things where it's just constantly there, but they have to keep asking questions about it. So they think they have to keep, they're wondering whether they have to stop the joke. It's becoming too serious now.
Yeah, it's to the point now.
Because apparently some artists and stuff actually do concept work for it and all that kind of thing as well. So
that portside house though, Ben, sorry to interrupt, but dear God, that is gorgeous.
That's great. Huge.
Nice.
That's exactly the kind of place where your character, possibly the bard, if you're being stereotypical, has bedded the governor's wife and is peeping out of a window, running across the...
It's Black
steps.
Sails where you meet Blackbeard for the first time.
True, yeah.
See, whereas I immediately thought Zorro. Zorro should be leaping from balcony to balcony.
Yes, yeah.
An age gap here, I imagine.
Oh, man. I love Zorro. Yeah.
Are you old enough to watch the TV series, Ben?
No, unfortunately.
No, he just knows Antonio. There you go.
I was thinking Antonio Banderas.
Oh, right. Yeah. They did make a film years later. Wasn't as good.
Anthony Hopkins, though.
There we have conquistadors.
Very nice.
And crew. And we should be coming up now on the ship itself, which is
the pirates.
a ridiculous amount.
Wow.
Fabulous.
I'm impressed he's got that on his shoulder, to be brutally
He's
honest.
a pirate. He's got a cigar hanging out of his mouth as well.
I do like the fact that you have one person who's just mopping the floors.
You got to have your crow.
You've got to have someone to swab the decks.
Yeah.
Yes.
I should lead yourself some
And
problems.
then,
Oh,
my God.
So, Queen Anne's Revenge. As you can see, you can make it as a full display model, and they even have, I think, included a way of presenting it so that there's like a little set that you can set it on with its.
So you don't have to waterline it.
No, there's a gaming option that comes with the waterline, and then both options can also be printed full or half deck, so you can see inside. So you could, if you wanted, have this just sitting on display, or making it more accessible to get between the levels on the ship.
Yeah.
There you can see there the display version sitting on the little cradle as well. Although this is a different ship, it's a frigate. But again, the same thing applies. Waterlined version for gameplay, and then you can either print the whole thing or just have a cross section of the deck to allow you to get in and have your players running up and down, reloading cannons and trying to pump the bilges out.
That would be like a perfect home base for like between role playing sessions for something.
Yeah.
And the Nautilus.
Oh,
so
I love that.
Yeah, this is not Mr. Lovecraft's first rodeo.
No, I really like the Feywild stuff that he's done before.
Yeah, and it's fascinating whenever he gets in there.
Feywood, there you go.
And just starts going to town, essentially.
Sneak a snack with the sword.
Yeah. So
skeletal camels. No.
Well, it's no worse than skeletal horses.
No.
But where do you store the water?
Just inside
stick a
the
bag in it.
There's plenty of room there.
Put bags in. Yeah.
But if people are interested in diving into, the fact that it comes with a 5e adventure is a bit of a bonus. If anybody's planning on doing anything
heretical,
from 1500s through to 1800s in and around the Caribbean and Mexico, then oh my God, you're well catered for in buildings. Never mind miniatures.
Or if you want to do some skirmish games with Cutlass from the folks at Black Scorpion, be perfect.
There's quite a lot of stretch goals in this as well, like big stretch goals.
I imagine
how nutty has it went?
It hasn't gone particularly nutty. It's only been up for, I don't know, whenever it was about half an hour after it launched, I posted it to Ben. So that was Tuesday.
Okay.
Tuesday.
Yeah. Tuesday. So it's only been gone a couple of days, and
come on, it smashed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he had an £833 goal that he was looking to reach.
Yeah. Well, when you do good work,
fish bite hooks.
Fair enough. You're right.
So you've got your miniatures, you've got your terrain, you've got an adventure to go on as well.
Brilliant.
That's fabulous.
There you go. There are 14 days. You have 2 weeks. Get in there and fill your boots with all the plunder and booty you can.
Yar.
Our last Kickstarter then, Ben.
So, you thought I'd only stuck one dwarf into this show. How about you take a look at the Zilvern Skyhold from Tired World Studio? So, while Iain Lovecraft has obviously put together a whole bunch of different campaigns in the past, Tired World Studio, this is their first campaign, but they are doing exceedingly good work, not cakes, but exceedingly good work on a whole bunch of steampunky, dwarven-themed terrain for you to use on your tabletops. The idea is all this is kind of matched around the sort of scales of 28 to 32 mil. It's all been designed to print through FDM printers via the likes of the Prusa MK3i3. That's the thing. And the Elgu Saturn. Yes, they are both.
Use a bit of filament.
Yeah, they're both printers. Yes, they are. But this is a really awesome selection of different pieces that could be used for the Caradron Overlords. in Age of Sigmar. You could use them in a whole range of other steampunky style games, something fantasy, something sci-fi as well, if you really wanted to. But there's some really fun little bits and pieces in there. There's the really big bits, which are kind of like merchants' houses and manor houses. Then you have slightly more industrial stuff. So you've got kind of like engineering bays, and you've got like dockland areas. You've also got all the pipe work and the kind of the large sort of like alchemical things as well, sort of bubbling away in the background to try and make sure that everything stays up in the air. The other cool thing about this as well is that you can see all those platforms. They come as a separate thing as well. So if you wanted to have the buildings on top of something, you can just place them on top of those big rigs and have them placed around too. There's lots of scatter terrain at the same time as well. So there's things like the chests and the barrels, and as I say, things like the pipes and everything as well too. It's a very impressive collection, and one that I think would look incredibly cool when built into a very Age of Sigmar style tabletop, I think. So,
I wonder how hard it would be to take some of that dwarven iconography off and just do it as like a really cool, plainer, steampunky design. This is nearly perfect for something like Bioshock.
Gorgeous. Yeah, definitely Bioshock. You're right.
I guess it depends how handy you are with 3D editing software and
if you have a 3D editing software that'll take the files, because honestly, these things are probably quite high poly.
But
some ones won't take it.
Yeah. What's nice about these? They might look like huge, and they are particularly big, but they've been designed to work on smaller printers as well. So you print them off in segments and sections, and then you just place them all together modularly. That's now a word for using the tabletop. So you've got all the interiors and everything as well, which is quite nice. But yeah, I think this is just great for, as I say, Age of Sigmar stuff, but it would also work for a range of other steampunk games as well. Like it's only really the buildings that have the dwarven iconography kind of baked into them very obviously. So I think you could use a lot of this stuff for the likes of Volsung if you wanted to, or pretty much any sci-fi steampunky game out there basically. So.
I would grim this stuff up a little bit and actually throw it in for a Necromunda table.
You could do as well. You could easily do that. Yeah, it could be all the gangways and sort of engineering
your
portions.
Pipes and your gangways and stuff. Yeah.
Very cool.
We're spoiled after last week's Osmotic Meld, where it showed us that big pictures can be put on Kickstarter.
Oh, I know, sad.
I want to click on all these and make them bigger so I can see them, but I can't.
Yeah, I went to their Facebook, which did have bigger pictures, but that's unfortunately this is what we got here. So.
People can go there themselves.
Yeah, but
I do like that it's showing they're all like pre-supported and stuff. So that makes, for a beginner, if you're just getting into 3D printing, that makes this an ideal one for you to.
I agree.
It also explains which ones work better with the other style of printer. So there's FDM and then there's, what's the other one?
Resin.
Yeah, so there's ones that have been designed so they can come out of resin bass. It's usually the ones that are it's usually the pieces that are accessories to larger pieces. So you'll print them off separately and then you just stick them all together and stuff. But it's a very well-rounded set from a group that has basically come out of effectively nowhere, which I think is great. So
a lot of like incidental pieces, like we were saying earlier, to make the world look lived in. Even some stuff with like little light poles and stuff. They do gaming aids.
The Cloud Boys would be great for objective markers. The gaming aids obviously good for marking wounds or measuring distances and that kind of thing. So yeah, they're even doing things like rock structures that you can place around the top. So maybe if you wanted to have it so that these are all floating around the tops of the mountains, have these based around underneath the platforms, and you could go and mine out at the different elements of it as well. Put lots of cotton wool on the tabletop.
That mine is gorgeous.
Yeah. All I can think of is that dwarven is someone, whoever operates that gate, whenever a train comes forward, just going,
yeah. Nom nom nom.
Glad I was not alone in this.
In my belly.
They're fairly flying through the stretch goals as well on this one.
Yeah, these hadn't been unlocked when I put the news story together earlier in the week. So, come Friday now, everything's been unlocked and added into the mix as well. So there's plenty of things for you to pick up. So the other nice thing about it, obviously, this is that because it's STL files that you're downloading, they can add as much as they want in here, and then it's just up to you, depending on when you want to print it and paint it, basically. So it's pretty cool.
Really cool.
Sweet, like candy. Look, there's a thing. with a big drill hand and a puppy face.
Mining suit.
Skinny Big Daddy.
That's what I was
Big Daddy went on a diet.
Yeah, he did.
Some sort of horrendous Humpty Dumpty of death. So 26 days left on that one, and already well-funded and plenty of stuff unlocked as well. So there you have it.
Bonus.
That wraps us up for another week. It's time for me to find where I've put all my stuff. I'll make sure I can get it down to Coleraine for tomorrow. It's going to be stacked up by the front door and ready to go. Like I say, that'll be 1 p.m.-ish tomorrow. If you want to drop by and see what we're up to, joining in the chat, tell Pun Dancer he's not funny and that you own Bot Wars and he doesn't. That's probably a good thing to do. That'll annoy him.
Burn.
Otherwise, we shall be back on Sunday for the XLBS, our Cult of Games exclusive show. If you're not part of the cult, you can come over to OnTableTop.com, sign up for a 30-day trial, and join us as we witter away the wee small hours of a Sunday morning, talking about all things hobby, ours and yours. If you don't join us then, we will see you same bad time, same bad channel for the Weekender next Friday. Bye-bye.
Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.